Shalom, shalom, family. Stay tuned. We're going to start after this. Thank you. Shalom, shalom. How's everybody doing? We pray that everybody is well and will be better. Brothers and sisters, this is your brother and friend Yeshaya Israel of the tribe of Dan of the house of Israel. This presentation we intended to do earlier tonight, but such did not happen in that particular case. So we want to start it now, brothers and sisters, and we hope and pray that people tune in, leave a comment, like, and share, and subscribe to the channel. To the brothers and sisters who have subscribed to the channel, it is appreciated. And brothers and sisters, let us, without any further ado, get into the presentation. This is live, brothers and sisters, on the platform. Mora Yeshaya history lessons, Mora Yeshaya Torah lessons, and a Facebook profile, Yeshaya Author Danite. So thank you for that, family. All right. What we want to do in getting into this, family, is asking the people, because I have it set up to where I can actually hear myself in a way, so I know to a certain extent how the sound quality is. But for the brothers and sisters who do hear live currently, if you in good spirits, please press the number 4. But I do hear it on my end as well. All right. Thank you for that. All right. So let us again, without any further ado, pull up the PowerPoint, if we will. What we're going to do, family, is divide this presentation into 2 parts. First part tonight, next part tomorrow night on the same platforms. All right. So if you subscribe to the channel, you'll get the notification, and then we'll move on from that particular case. Thank you for that. All right. If it can be seen on the screen, it cannot at this particular case. So I'm going to have to do it this way. Present in this particular matter, if we will. All right. We were saying last month that we want to sit there and get into this month more of the matter of the history and not so much about other subjects we talked about. Nonetheless, we do want to broaden the concept that Danitepublications wants to get into in this particular case. All right. So asking you all again to comment, like, share, and subscribe, giving honor to the Most High. In this presentation, we will speak on the matter of ancient nations and their history and how did their paths cross each other. We hope and pray that everyone is well and will be better. I can be reached at the number you see across the screen. That is 908-587-4841. Thank you for that, family. Let us explain. This is for all interested and concerned people. This is about the history of the nation of Israel, a brief explanation of the true identity of the black man. This concerns the people who were brought to the Western Hemisphere and treated like beasts of burden. This is dedicated to the people who were denied any semblance of cultural identity and murdered when teaching their children their true roots, these roots going back to the 12 tribes of Israel. So, brothers and sisters, looking at it in this particular case, the gentleman that you see there on the right-hand side is a man named Ali Jida. Ali Jida is for what they want to call an African Palestinian. He is a person that went on TV and then by defaulting on the internet speaking upon how the people of the Israelites were in the land of Israel, that is in the east, and were chased into Africa and then brought to the United States. And that, brothers and sisters, is going to be inside the description when this video is uploaded. So again, brothers and sisters, these are things that we care to sit there and bring out for reference purposes. All right. Again, we hope and pray that everybody is well and will be better. Thank you for that, family, in that particular case. Now, what do we want to also state concerning this kind of call and matter, this kind of situation and matter, and so forth? Again, we're going to make this into a two-part matter with the amount of slides that we want to go over, but nonetheless, we definitely do want to sit there and bring this out for reference purposes to the people. All right. Thank you for that, family, in that particular case. Now, when we say that these roots going back to the 12 tribes of Israel, we're talking about the people that we see in the scriptures, which in part one of this, we're going to get into. And then in part two, tomorrow night, we're going to sit there and expound upon this history a bit more in depth. All right. So again, we ask you to subscribe to the channel, comment, like, and share. Thank you. We must explain. The progenitor of the nation of Israel was a man named Jacob. Jacob was the second born son of a man named Isaac. Isaac was a son of Abraham. Abraham came from Ur of the Chaldees. This land is situated by what is now known as Kuwait in Iraq. According to Godfrey Higgins, in his book, Anacalypsis, he stated the Chaldeans were originally Negroes. Now we know Negroes is blacks. Abraham was black. Abraham migrated from the land of Ur of Chaldea to the land of Canaan. Genesis chapter 12 speaks upon that. The Canaanites called him Ibri, meaning one who crossed over. The Canaanites descended from Noah's son, Ham. Abraham, the Ham in Abraham has nothing to do with Ham for linguistic purposes, was not from Ham's seed. He was from the seed of Shem, as were the Assyrians, Chaldeans, Arameans, Lydians. Abraham, in traveling from Chaldea, went to Syria, Aram, and then south to Canaan. The area we are speaking of is referred to as today the Fertile Crescent. The nations who lived there were from Shem and Ham and were black. According to Harry Johnston, there is a curliness of the hair together with the Negro eye and full lips in the portraiture of Assyria, which conveys the idea of an evident Negro element in Babylonia. Now, brothers and sisters, what we want to point out, if we will, family, is that Assyria and Babylon were neighbors geographically. The land that they winded up being into was the land that is today referred to by some as Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia, the word, is from the Greek word meaning the land between the rivers being the Tigris and the Euphrates. The area we're speaking of, brothers and sisters, too, we want to point out was called in history Shinar in the Bible and Sumer among other peoples. So as time went on and the Sumerians were conquered by the people we know in history as the Guti people, and then the Elamite people, and then the people known as the Babylonians and the Assyrians, it's the same landmass that was occupied by different people as time went on. So these are things, brothers and sisters, that we care to sit there and bring out for reference purposes. So now when we read of Abraham of Ur of Chaldea, Chaldea was a capital city in that vicinity, in the southern part of such as you go by modern day Iraq. So hopefully, brothers and sisters, this is understood. If you happen to have any questions, please again, feel free to put so and say in the chat. Thank you for that, family, in that particular case. All right. So let us, brothers and sisters, continue in this particular matter. All right. We ask you to comment, like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for that, family. Let us continue. Oh, another thing to point out. Genesis chapter 12, when it says that Abraham went into the land and that the Canaanite was there, he didn't go there like the mindset say of Columbus, saying that he quote unquote discovered something. There were already people here. Some people try to snap on the Israelites by saying, oh, well, Israel doesn't appear in the book until Genesis 28. Well, that shows you that Israel is telling you that they have a people that they themselves come from. So it's not like in the beginning, the world was created by the creator. Now we see the Israelites. No, it starts about the Most High doing the creation and the cultures of the people, the civilizations of the people, the nationalities of the people, the linguistics of the people. And when we say linguistics, we're talking about the languages of the people that existed before the Israelites. If I were to tell you a in-depth story of myself, I can't start in 1980, a year that a brother was born. I will have to sit there and talk about my mother and father to give a better and in-depth story of how I came about to be. So these are things, brothers and sisters, that we care to bring out, if we will, for reference purposes. All right, let's continue in this. The book that you see on the right-hand side is a book called The Hebrew Heritage of Black Africa, written by Stephen Jacobs and then rewritten, brothers and sisters, with permission by Moses Farrar. Stephen Jacobs, for what it was worth, he's now deceased, was a European Jewish guy that was saying that the black man is the true house of Israel. So you can get that book online for those who are interested. Moses Farrar, having permission, brothers and sisters, from Stephen Jacobs, took the book and reprinted it out. I met personally Moses Farrar and may the Most High continue to bless his life. If you look up Moses Farrar on Amazon, you will see a plethora of books for those brothers and sisters who are interested in such. All right, so these are things we care to bring out for reference purposes. Let me give an example and show how something connects. I'm an author, for those who do know. I can't write a book and not mention, brothers and sisters, a bibliography. Where did I get my information from? Where did I get my citations from? Where is my footnotes? Even though they try to not use so many things like footnotes these days and times, you can, but they try to frown upon it. But personally, in writing a book, I love footnotes, but that's neither here nor there. But brothers and sisters, it doesn't take nothing away from a brother to sit there and cite another man or another woman's work. There is a lady, I forget her name. I think her last name is Jones, Jones. And she wrote a book called They Were Her Property Too, speaking about the Caucasian women or the white women that were involved in slavery. That book is very intense. So if you look up Jones, slavery on Amazon, perhaps that book will sit there and come up, say reference purposes, if you will. All right. So let us continue in this particular case. But before such, if you will, because this is a 60 slide matter or so. So what we want to do is break it down into 2 nights. That is to say, tonight and tomorrow night. All right. Stay tuned for the timing of such regarding tomorrow night. So let's look at this. It says, according to Harry Johnston, there is a curliness of the hair together with the Negro eye and full lips. And the portraits are, meaning the portraits of the people of Assyria, which conveys an idea of an evident Negro element in Babylonia. So if you had Godfrey Higgins saying that the Chaldean people were Negroes, and then you see Harry Johnston speaking of the Negro element in Babylonia, Chaldea, Babylon, Assyria, those are lands of what you call today the Middle East. So why were they so prevalent or hard body, for the lack of a better term, to tear down the statues that they saw over in the East? It was not because people were worshiping statues, because the people tearing it down also worship statues. They were perhaps trying to hide something, to try to sit there and make sure, don't have that kind of thing sit there and to be known. You understand? Let's continue, family. Abraham sired Isaac, and Isaac sired Jacob. Jacob sired 13 children, whom of which one was a female. They too were black. Speaking of his wives, they were Leah, Rachel, Bilhah, and Zilpah. Bilhah and Zilpah were maids to Leah and Rachel, but given the time and land location, we can reason they too were of the Aramean or the Shemitic origin, if you will. The mothers of the children of Israel were Chaldean, and the fathers of the children of Israel were Chaldean. Thus, as stated, the children of Israel come from a branch of the ancient black nations. So when we call this Black history starring the Israelites, a brother taking respectful advantage of the fact that our people are listening during, quote, Black History Month, we want to bring this out to the people. All right? Ezekiel in the Bible, chapter 23 says, the likeness of the sons of Babylon, even of Chaldea, the land of their nativity. So it's telling you right in the scriptures in Ezekiel, who was an Israelite of the tribe of the Levites, that the nativity or the native land of where the Israelites come from was the land of Chaldea. Now, for those who are interested for what you call external sources, we already went over the fact that Godfrey Higgins in his book Anacalypsis spoke about the Chaldeans originally being Negroes. So if your origin is of what historians, archaeologists, sociologists, and others say came from people of Negro origin, then the children of Israel by default will be of Negro origin. And so taking it back in these slides, if you will, this man here that we spoke upon earlier, for those who joined on, thank you for joining on, is Ali Jida. Alijidda. And you can look him up on the internet, brothers and sisters. He is the one that, brothers and sisters, we spoke a little earlier for those who joined on after we said it, is on the internet after being on BET, Black Entertainment Television, as a quote-unquote African Palestinian that said that the people of the Israelites went into Africa during the time with the Greeks and the Romans and then were later taken to the United States. That's online. So we have Israel, a black man saying it. Then we have, for those who are interested, white people speaking upon such in the examples that we shown upon here, such as Stephen Jacobs in his book, The Hebrew Heritage of Black Africa. And we have a map here going all the way back, brothers and sisters, to the children of Israel, and Israelite prophet Ezekiel speaking on it. So now, if you have Ezekiel who lived during the time when Babylon was in rule, because Ezekiel was a captive taken during the time of the 6th century BCE, when King Jehoiakim of the tribe of Judah was taken into Babylon in the 6th century BCE, saying that the origin of where the Israelites come from is the land of Chaldea, Babylon, and what you call over here in the east, if you will. The Mediterranean Sea is in the east. All right. Now, you have Assyria here, Ashur, the capital at one point, Nineveh, the capital at one point, Chaldea, Ur, which was called in ancient times Uruk, Babylon, all of this area right here, brothers and sisters, for reference purposes. So these are things, brothers and sisters, that we care to sit there and bring out for reference purposes. So if you have, again, Ezekiel saying it in the past, historians long after the Old Testament was written, speaking upon it, kind of holds true weight, don't you think? Let's continue, if you will, family. The women were actually Chaldean, but spoke Aramaic language. Now, when we say the women, we're talking about the wives of Jacob. All right, let's continue, family. Thank you. One of Jacob's children, Joseph, was sold by his brothers to Ishmaelites who were going to Egypt. Genesis chapter 37 and Genesis chapter 45. If we were to look at history and connect the time frame of the Bible, we see that Joseph was in Egypt during the time of the Hyksos' first rule. The Hyksos were called Hakushoswet, which means rulers of foreign lands. They went to Egypt during the 11th dynasty. There is an Egyptian papyrus, meaning Egyptian writing on papyrus paper, called the Brooklyn Papyrus, which states Semitic names as part of a prison register. It was not uncommon to have Shemitic people in Egypt from the 13th to the 18th dynasties. The Exodus that we read of in the Bible happened in Dynasty 13. And we're going to talk further upon that, brothers and sisters, when we get into the presentation tomorrow night. All right. But what you're seeing on the right-hand side is people that are referred to in history as the Hyksos. As we pointed out in history, brothers and sisters, in the past, the people who were called Hyksos did not call themselves that. The Hakushoswet, the Setu, the Jahi, these people that were called such were called that by bywords. They didn't call themselves that. And as we pointed out, say 2 weeks ago in a presentation, the identity of the Hyksos cannot be pinpointed to one particular people. When you go on the platform Mora Yeshaya Torah lessons, Mora Yeshaya history lessons, you will begin to sit there, brothers and sisters, and see that in Exodus 1. That is a portion the brother did online on those same platforms I'm on now, glory to the Most High, called Exodus chapter 1, for those who are interested, all right? We spoke a little bit more in depth concerning the Hyksos, if you will. So these, again, are things that we care to bring out for reference purposes. All right, now, when we say that these people that were called Hyksos went to Egypt during the 11th dynasty, that was in part doing what you call in timeline the Middle Kingdom of Egypt. During the Middle Kingdom of Egypt, we wanted to point out, and will point out tomorrow night, that it was not an uncommon practice, brothers and sisters, for people who were Amu or Asiatics coming from lands that we spoke of over here to go into Egypt, brothers and sisters, as time went on. All right? So thank you for that, family. If I can be heard well by you all, because I hear myself well, and if you're in good spirits, please type in the number 1. Please type in the number 1 if you're in good spirits and you can hear me well, because I can hear me well, and so forth. So when we say if you're in good spirits, we want to bring out that kind of positive and nice energy to brothers and sisters. All right, so let's look at this right here. It was not uncommon to have Shemitic peoples. So let's look at this, family. When you see people saying Semitic and Semitic, S-E-M, and not S-H-E-M, that right there is a lingual matter, if you will. Because brothers and sisters, when you look upon the matter linguistically, Greek does not have an SH syllable as Hebrew does, as Arabic does, as other languages do. There's just, say, an H sound perhaps, and then there definitely is an S sound. So when they transliterate Shem to Greek, it becomes from Shem to Sem. And so these are things, brothers and sisters, that we care to bring out for reference purposes. All right? Thank you for that, family. The children of Israel, while in the wilderness after the Exodus, were given laws, statutes, commandments, and judgments from YHWH, Yah, the Most High. The children of Israel went through the land of Canaan or Canaan after the death of Moses under the successor of Moses, whose name was Joshua. Joshua's attack on the city of Jerusalem is not only chronicled in the Tanakh, which is commonly called the Old Testament. The Tanakh is commonly called the Old Testament, but also in the Amarna records. The king of Jerusalem appealed to the Pharaoh to send assistance from the Habiru who were attacking. The Israelites did not conquer, quote, the land of Canaan, for the book of Judges shows us that several tribes did not push out the inhabitants of certain lands. So, brothers and sisters, when you go to Judges chapter 1 and Judges chapter 2, you begin to sit there and see that the children of Israel wound up living with and among the Canaanites and thus mixed in with the Canaanites, which also means that the Canaanites mixed in with the Israelites. So not only did they mix together at a certain point, they also began to be influenced by the Canaanites. When we go later on in the book of Psalms, and it says that the children of Israel worship the gods of Canaan, which makes some people in archaeology say that there's no difference between ancient Canaan and ancient Israel. And that is the fault of the Israelites in history for not staying loyal to the Most High, staying loyal to the creator of heaven and earth, but winded up going in and following the doctrines of other peoples. Some decades and centuries later, you'll be known as the people you wanted to follow. Black people message. Stop following everybody. We have our own way. So these are things, brothers and sisters, we care to bring out for reference purposes. What we're going to do right now is take an intermission, a break if we will. And Son of Judah, thank you for typing in the number 1. And we're going to, brothers and sisters, play some music. I'm going to go get something to drink. Be right back, family. Thank you for tuning in. Give me about 2 or 3 minutes. Time right now is 1:11 a.m. on the Eastern Standard Time. Thank you for that, family. Let's do this. Thank you, brothers and sisters. All right. Somebody typed in Jesus Christ is King. Well, no disrespect to anybody who may have a different understanding. Jesus Christ is not King of heaven and earth, nor is he King upon this channel. Jesus said, love your neighbors as you would love yourself. The Most High said that through Moses in the book of Leviticus. All right. So in this particular case, in the heavens and the earth, the Most High Yah is King, not Jesus Christ or anyone else. And on this platform, Yah is King, brothers and sisters. And so these are things we care to bring out. All right. A brother's going to take a short intermission and be right back. Thank you for that, for joining on. Shalom, shalom. Thank you again for joining on. We're going to, brothers and sisters, continue in this particular case. All right. If the screen can be seen, I'll be able to see it too. All right. So let me go to the present part. Stop. Go back here. Do this say again. Not a problem. If we will. Go back here. Pull this up. All right. And it's able to be seen. Thank you for that, family. We hoping and praying that everybody is well and will be better. Thank you for that during, say, the intermission aspect in that case. Now, what we want to talk about here is in part the external references, say, of the Israelites and what happened. In the Amarna records, brothers and sisters, they say to the timing of the new kingdom of Egypt, right? There was a time when the people were talking to the Egyptians to get assistance due to the Kabiru, or what we will call later on the Hebrew people attacking the people of the Canaanites. Now, this went on all the way from the time of Joshua, Moses' successor, all the way down, brothers and sisters, to the timing of David, the son of Jesse. And so when you read about Dadua in the Amarna records, that is David, king of Israel. When you read about Beniyahu, that's Benaiah, who was the assistant to David in history. When you read about Yeshua, brothers and sisters, that's Jesse, that is the father of David, inside of the Amarna records. So these are things, brothers and sisters, that we care to sit there and bring out, if we will, for reference purposes. All right? So we hope and pray that everybody is well and will be better. Now, let's continue in this manner. Again, we're going to, brothers and sisters, expound upon this, if we will, in two different aspects, two different presentations, should I say, all right? Two different nights, tonight and tomorrow night. Now, there was a cartoon that I saw some years ago where they had black people portraying Samuel and Saul. Now, the part that I saw was the part in which Samuel was getting on Saul for disobeying. You understand? Looking upon it, say, in that particular case. And so I went online and I typed in matter of Saul and Samuel, black images, and that's what came up, if we will. Now, to the people who may not, quote, feel the Israelites and so forth and so on, and what we talk about, what we portray, what we present, and things of that kind of nature, right? Okay. But when the Italians talk about the Romans and look at their statues and their pictures, nobody says that. When the British talk about the kings of ancient England and they use pictures and statues, nobody sits there and takes out time to take shots or to be disrespectful toward it. But in certain cases, when the Israelites sit there and present, then some people just going to try to just sit back and say this or that, a naysayer, if you will. But that is that particular person's problem in that particular case. What we want to do this time and taking, quote, respect of a matter and what you call, quote unquote, Black History Month. We want to sit there and take out the time while our people's attention span is heightened and present what we want to say. And that's why our brother called it Black History starring the Israelites. This again is going to be a part 1 and a part 2 of this presentation. Okay, so we are still in part 1 of this matter. After the death of Joshua, there was a succession of judges in Israel. Some of the most famous was Samson and Shemuel. Now, some people try to snap on or not, quote unquote, feel the matter, say, of Samson. But you got to understand his mindset. It's a time of war. For the lack of a better term, it's a time of having beef between one people and another, between the Israelites and the Philistines. So people try to actually portray Samson in the Bible as a madman who went from one part of attacking Philistines in one area and then going to attack another. It's called wartime. So if you are part of a people that are in a war, all defenses must be up. And that's what, no disrespect intended, maybe some of our people as Black people do not understand. That we are, in certain cases, by some statements, at war with the world in certain cases. So when we think, hey, everything is cool, everything is bliss, and then when we find out, no, it's not. Such is not the case. When we find out, not to get sidetracked, that Trump put in an order that wound up having a DEI, get rid of certain things such as having Black clubs, Black female clubs, women of color clubs inside of West Point, which is a military base, we forgot where we are. We forgot who we're dealing with. We thought it changed because the tactic of war has changed, but it has not. Brothers and sisters, it has not changed. And these are things, brothers and sisters, that we want to sit there and care to bring out for reference purposes. We again hope and pray that everybody is well and will be better. All right. Now, Samson having problems with one part of a people called the Philistines does not make him a quote unquote madman to go and attack Philistines somewhere else, because it's a time of war. You understand? The rules of war that people talk about may not in many cases exist. Now, the Israelites asked for a king to rule over them. Yod He Wah He Yah told Samuel to give them a king. The man chosen was Shaul, Saul, from the tribe of Benjamin. After Saul ruled, David ruled. After David ruled, Solomon ruled. After Solomon died, the kingdom split between Judah and Israel. There were 20 kings who lived in the north, Israel. All were wicked. There were 20 kings after Solomon. 14 were wicked. So, brothers and sisters, if you are talking about 20 kings of the northern kingdom and say 20 kings of the southern kingdom, and of all of that, only 6 were righteous and none of them was in the northern kingdom being righteous, that's not a good look. You had decades and then into centuries of wickedness. Not trying to be sad or disrespectful, it's kind of like what we're seeing now in 2025 and the year 2020 to year 2015 and things of that kind of nature with Smack DVDs, Don Diva, As Is, all of those kind of magazines like that that speak upon what our people were doing in, quote, the hood, if you will, in the 80s and in the 70s. When these kind of things are still being brought back up, what history are we going to leave to our children? Because if we're talking about the house of Israel, my brothers and sisters, and we want to present this as Black history starring the Israelites did not leave, and no disrespect intended, a good record of themselves. And when I say good, I'm not talking about so much of accuracy. I'm talking about content of character of how you move as a people. That is what we want to talk about in reference purposes. So with the kingdom splitting, brothers and sisters, after the death of Solomon, why? Because Solomon had wickedness brought to him and he entertained it. Some people say, oh, it's the women that made Solomon go astray. Solomon stated, a man who conquers his spirit is greater than he who conquers the city. Men today say, if you let a woman rule over you, you a simp. In other words, a simpleton. She played him, she finessed him, controlled him, if you will, in that particular case. But if Solomon was, no disrespect intended, simping, which caused his children then to lose the kingdom, there's a couple of things to learn from that. The things that you do affect your future. So these are things we have to sit back and think and characterize. What can we sit there and get into? What should we get into? Are we going to sit back and think 20, 30 years later? A brother is 44 years old. 20 years from now, I'll be, God willing, 64. I won't be able to do the things at 44, pardon me, at 64 that I'm doing at 44. So while you got more strength, get it together even for the future, because time is going. You understand? So these are things, brothers and sisters, that we care to sit there and bring out, if we will, for reference purposes. Again, so you had Joshua after Moses, and after that, you had some judges. After that, you had the matter of the kings that were ruling. And again, after Solomon died, being one of the kings, the kingdom split. So let's look at this, if we will, the kings of Israel and Judah. All right, Saul, David, Solomon, united monarchy. After that, you had the division. So the kings of Judah, Rehoboam, Abiyah, Asa, Yehoshaphat, Yehoram, Ahaziah, Ataliah, who was a woman, Yehoash, Amaziah, Uzziah, Yotam, Achaz, Kezkiyahu, Menashe, Amon, Yoshiyahu, Yehoiakaz, Yehoiakim, Yehoiakim, Zidkiyah, Judah. So we just went over using mainly the Hebrew pronunciations of the kings of Judah, if you will, for reference purposes. All right. Rehoboam, freer of the people. Abiyah, Yah is my father. Asa, medicinal. Jehoshaphat, God is judge. God has judged. Yehoram, God is exalted. Achaziah, God is strong. Atalia, who was a woman, means high esteem. Yehoash, God is strong. God is a fire. Amaziah, God is courageous. Uzziah, God is my strength. Yotam, God is perfect. Achaz, he has seized. Hezekiah, Kezkiah, God is my strength. Menashe, one who causes to forget. Amon, oak. Yoshiyah, God heals. Yehoachaz, God has laid hold upon. Yehoiakim, God will establish. Yehoiakim, God will establish. Both names meaning essentially the same. Zedkiah, Zedekiah, God is righteous. So, brothers and sisters, these are essentially the Hebraic pronunciations of the names and the meanings thereof. Then we had the kingdom of the south being Israel. Pardon me, kingdom of the north being Israel, sorry. Jeroboam, Nadab, Baasha, Elah, Zimri, Tibni, Omri, Ahab, Ahaziah, Yehoram, Yehu, Yehoachaz, Joash, Jeroboam II, Zechariah, Shalom, Menahem, Pequakiah, Pequak, Hoshea, Israel. Now, brothers and sisters, some of these kings are written in the records of other nations. Did you know that? Did you know, brothers and sisters, that Uzziah is written inside the Assyrian record? That Yotam is written inside the Assyrian record? That Ahaz is written inside the Assyrian record? That Hezekiah is written inside the Assyrian record? That Manasseh is written inside the Assyrian record? That Jehoiakim is written inside the Babylonian record? And the records of these kings by other nations does not contradict what the Bible says of these kings. So if you have Manasseh, king of Judah, written by Ashur-bani-pal of Assyria as a vassal to the Assyrian Empire, and it speaks about Manasseh being a captive in Babylon because he was taken when Assyria was ruling Babylon as a captive, is not hard to figure out. So these are things, when we talk about earlier in the introduction about these different kings and kingdoms and how their paths crossed each other, again, screenshots are welcome. So if you want to take a screenshot, ask a question, a brother's telephone number, yes, is across the screen. So these are things, again, that we sit there and care to bring out for reference purposes. All right. So let's look. Jeroboam, Nadab, Baasha, Elah, Zimri, Tibni, Omri, Ahab. Omri, Ahab is written of inside of the Assyrian kings. Did you know that? Did you know that, brothers and sisters? And that's what we're going to do, given a little treat with the translation of the kings of Judah, and this being a part one and a part two, we're going to translate. Follow along. I'm trying to sit there and get subscribers, not trying to be funny or nothing like that. We will not translate the kings of Israel's names until tomorrow night. So we're going to go back to the slide, and then we're going to continue, brothers and sisters, tomorrow night. We're not ending now. We're going to continue. But as far as the translation of the names of the kings of Israel, we're going to do that tomorrow night. So stay tuned if you want the full package of the presentation. All right. But brothers and sisters, Omri and Ahab, and we went over the matter of Ahab marrying a Canaanite woman. Remember, we spoke upon the Canaanites from the time of Judges in the Bible still being in the land of Israel. And they mixing with the Israelites, and the Israelites mixing with them. Ahab is one of the people who mixed in with the Canaanites. His wife was Jezebel. Now, Isabel in the Zidonian language, and the people of Zidon are part of the Canaanite people. You understand? Doesn't mean the same thing in Hebrew as it does in Canaan. Isabel in Canaanite language does not hold the same meaning as it does in Hebrew. So these are things, brothers and sisters, we care to bring out for reference purposes. Let's continue, family. The prophets among the Israelites. The prophets Elijah, Elisha, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Hosea, Joel, Amos, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Obadiah, Habakkuk, and Zephaniah were during the kings of Israel and Judah. Daniel and Ezekiel were during the Babylonian captivity. The prophets Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi were during the Persian rule over Israel. And this is why you find, brothers and sisters, in the book of Haggai in the Bible and in the book of Zechariah in the Bible, you see the word Darius. Darius was one of the kings, brothers and sisters, that was in the matter of the Persians. This is why you might see Nebuchadnezzar in the book of Daniel. This is why you see Ezekiel as a captive in Babylon, and then he's hearing after that about the destruction of Jerusalem by the Babylonians, because Babylon took Judah in 597 BCE, recorded in the Bible in 2 Kings 24, as well, brothers and sisters, as in 586 BCE, recorded in the Bible in 2 Kings chapter 25. So as we call this here Black History starring the Israelites, we want to sit there and present from these platforms to our brothers and sisters, whether you acknowledge yourself as Israel or not, why we say what we say historically. One of the things people said about Israelites is this: Israelites only cite the Bible. No. There's a video a brother has called Israel and Archaeology on the platform Moriah Shire History Lessons, where a brother talks about Israelite references inside of museums. And I say this in no disrespect. We spoke earlier, right? Pardon me, about Ahab, king of Israel, mentioned by the Assyrian king. When you look up in your own time, and I'm going to type this in there for those who are interested, right? When you type in, or when you're looking in your own time, right? Oh, that's interesting that somebody wrote that. Let's look at this. You have the Karkar battle. The Karkar battle is a battle that the Arameans and the Assyrians had, but it's not mentioned in the Bible. But the Assyrian record speaks of the Israelite king Ahab. and somebody decided to write, there is zero evidence of there being an exodus in Egypt. Well, I don't mean to sound or playing at words, my brother or sister, because I don't know your gender. So I say brother or sister, typing that in according to this 1:27 a.m. Somebody wrote, there is zero evidence of there being an exodus in Egypt. Well, I don't mean, like I said, to play at words. There, in Bible, for instance, there's no exodus in Egypt. If the exodus is from Egypt. But stay tuned tomorrow if you're interested, because that is something that we're going to sit there and talk about. Because for anyone, as some have actually stated, there's no evidence of it. You got people saying today that there's no evidence of the Atlantic slave trade that we were, quote, already here in America. And then some, knowing that sounds bogus, then have to say, oh, it's only 3%, oh, it's only 6% that came here. And by default, as a brother pointed out in a presentation called The Atlantic Slave Trade on the platform Mordecai Yeshaya Torah Lessons, Mordecai Yeshaya History Lessons, is then going to have to sit there and state, well, Africa is motherland, but we was already here. If you're saying Africa is motherland, then how can you say that you're from somewhere that's not from your mother? Just say you hate Africa, and thus you have to disassociate with the facts of the Atlantic slave trade, the record left by Oluda Equiano and others in the United States, the record left by Bakbakar, if I mispronounced the name, in Brazil, the record left by they of the Maroons in Jamaica. You got to ignore all of that in order to sit there and try to justify there being no Atlantic slave trade, or you just a quote-unquote Black American who don't acknowledge your brothers and sisters in the Caribbean, which is another subject. But somebody decided to type in, and I'm going to post it here for reference purposes, there is zero evidence of there being an exodus in Egypt. Again, not playing at words, brothers and sisters, but it wasn't an exodus in Egypt. It was an exodus out of Egypt, if we're talking about the exodus we see in the scriptures. Because if anything, when the children of Israel, as well as other peoples, went into the land of Egypt, it was an exodus from Canaan. It was an exodus from the Sinai. It was an exodus, brothers and sisters, from the Levant. It was an exodus like the Kassite people, Kassite, that came from Babylon and went into Egypt. So, I don't know the particular brother or sister stance upon the matter or so forth, but if you're interested, you can stay tuned tomorrow night. We're going to go over it, or you can sit there and go on the platform, Mordecai Yeshaya History Lessons, and see a plethora of videos speaking upon such. All right. Just want to point that out for reference purposes. Thank you, brothers and sisters, for the comment. Thank you, brothers and sisters, tuning in. I know it's an odd time, 1:30 something a.m., quote unquote Saturday morning, but we want to present this to the people. Thank you for that, family. So let's look at this, if we will. Right? And we are going to pull this up again. And looking upon it, say in that particular case. All righty. Any questions or comments? Please feel free. Put say into the chat. Thank you for that, brothers and sisters. The northern tribes were taken to the Assyrian captivity. Dan, from the time of the judges, were migrating, and during the time of Baasha, king of Israel, we see that Dan was smitten or defeated and thus migrated in 1 Kings chapter 15. So, brothers and sisters, while the northern and southern kingdom was still in operation, in part the tribe of Dan began to migrate. So now, the division of the kingdom happened in 1 Kings chapter 12. By the time we get to 1 Kings 15, Dan in part was already leaving the land of Israel. So now when we begin to sit there and see about the tribes of Israel being scattered into other places, when you go for a secular reference into what is referred to as Batu the Prophet, a French historian writing about the Israelites, he cited a reference by somebody named Rabbi Halevi saying that the tribe of Dan and the tribe of Gad can be found in Eastern Africa. So, brothers and sisters, for what we want to point out, you can go into the video on the platform called African or Hebrew Diaspora, in which we speak upon that matter more so. For those who want a shorter video, you can type in Yeshaya Yisrael on YouTube, YESHIAH YISRAEL, and type in Diaspora of Israel and Judah, and you will see references with the books and the map shown live. Not so much saying PowerPoint, if we will. All right, now all the people from the northern tribes were taken into captivity, for we see that Hezekiah, which was or who was a king of Judah, in 2 Chronicles 30, kept the Passover with some of the northern tribes. Also, over 100 years after the kingdom of Israel fell, we see Jeremiah speaking of what was going on from Dan in Jeremiah chapter 4. Brothers and sisters, my mind goes into the matter of thinking about what happened, if we will, brothers and sisters, in Brazil with the Maroons. When they killed the guy, whether his name is pronounced as Zombie or Zumbi or Palmares, he was assassinated by the Portuguese, but his name was living on, and there was still Maroon settlements over 100 years after the death of Zumbi of Palmares, for those who know the black people history in Brazil. You understand? So now when the northern kingdom fell, not as a people, but as a kingdom, you still hear about Dan 100 years after the tribes of Israel lost their kingdom. The people were still there. And so by the time Jeremiah comes along as a prophet, brothers and sisters, he is already during the time after Assyria took the northern tribes of Israel as a kingdom. We read in 2 Kings chapter 25 in this presentation, giving glory to the Most High, Black history, starring the Israelites, that when Babylon defeated the southern kingdom of Judah, brothers and sisters, it says that the king of Babylon left the poorest of the land in the land. There was an African guy that told me that during the Atlantic slave trade, they took the best that West Africa had to offer and left the ones that were not, quote unquote, the best. So like Assyria, they took the royalty and broke down the kingdom of Israel. Like Babylon, they took the royalty of Judah and broke down the kingdom of Judah. And like during the Atlantic slave trade, they took the kings and the princes and the royalty and broke down the kingdoms that was there. After, no disrespect intended, the Muslims did. Linking up with the Moors and breaking down the Songhai Empire. So these are things, brothers and sisters, that we care to sit there and bring out for reference purposes. All right? Continuing on in this, it said the prophet Zechariah during the Persian Empire stated that Israel was scattered like a whirlwind among the nations. Brothers and sisters, before Assyria and Israelites met up, whether good or bad like that, Dan was one of the tribes that was already leaving from the land of Israel. Now, by the time Assyria came, they broke down the kingdom of Israel. Babylon defeated Assyria in the 7th century BCE. And then Babylon was defeated by the Persians in, brothers and sisters, the 6th century BCE. All the while, the children of Israel were scattering from their land. So from the time before the 7th century BCE, pardon me, from before, even year before the 7th century BCE, because Ahab had situations where Israel was scattering. But brothers and sisters, before the matter of the Assyrians in the 8th century BCE defeating the Israelites, and then before Babylon, after that, defeating the tribe of Judah and the kingdom of Judah, that is. And before the Persians defeated the Babylonians, Israel was already scattering. So it wasn't just slavery or captivity. It was not just slavery or captivity that caused the children of Israel to be scattered. Sometimes Israelites migrated on their own. So to the brothers and sisters saying we were, quote, already here in America before the Atlantic slave trade, yeah, You find Hebrew artifacts in the Ohio Decalogue, the Los Nunes inscription. You find those kind of things in North America talking about the Hebrews. There is a record referred to as such that says in the Ohio Decalogue, translated, I am the Lord thy God who brought you out of the land of Egypt. How do you have a Hebrew Decalogue, a Hebrew writing in what we call the state of Ohio today, predating the Atlantic slave trade, because there were Israelites, yes, already scattering from one end of the earth to the other. Captivity just did it in another aspect. But we don't want to negate, brothers and sisters, the matter of what happened with the people, say one way or the other. All right, so let's continue, if we will. All right, now, the prophet Zechariah was during the time after Babylon fell. And it already says that Israel was scattered like a whirlwind among the nations. So from the times of the kings of Assyria in the 8th century BCE to the time of Zechariah in the 5th century BCE, we see that Israel over 300 years migrated to different places. Isaiah chapter 11 mentions Cush, Egypt, Pathros, Shinar, Hamath, and the Isles of the Sea. The sea would be the Mediterranean Sea. Brothers and sisters, not to get too personal, a brother recently moved to New Jersey, right? I moved to a part in Jersey that I was already familiar with. I left out of New York as far as living, say, in New York, right? Not to get too personal in one's own business, if you will, right? I want to see if there was more comments I didn't see. Okay, looking at it like that, let's continue. If we will, right? Thank you for that. When people move and migrate, they go to places they're familiar with. So if the Israelites were going to places, according to the scriptures, in Isaiah 11, such as Cush in Ethiopia, Egypt in Northeast Africa, Patros, which is in between Egypt and Cush, modern day Sudan, Shinar, which is Sumer, that is, that we shown in the picture earlier in southern Iraq, Hamath, which is over where the Zidonians were, and the Isles of the Sea. When we start talking about, brothers and sisters, two things. The sea peoples we're going to talk about in the next presentation. The Den a brother presents, is the tribe of Dan that was among the sea peoples. Judges chapter 5 had Deborah saying, and Dan, why does he dwell in ships? Why is Judges chapter 5 in the Bible speaking about Dan and ships? Who were the Den of the sea peoples that Ramsey spoke about in the Egyptian record? Why would the Israelites feel comfortable going to Egypt in the time of Isaiah and later on in the time of Jeremiah? Why was Jeremiah taken to Egypt? While he was a prophet among the Israelites there, Ezekiel was a prophet among the Israelites that was in Babylon. So when we speak upon the matter of Israel being scattered from one end of the earth to the other, Israel, let's get our studies up. These are the things we're talking about. Let's continue, family. During the major kingdoms which came up, the Israelites were subject to them all. When the Babylonian kingdom came to its zenith in the 7th century BCE, the Israelites were later in Babylon. Jehoiakim of Judah is mentioned in Babylonian records. The Persians defeated the Babylonians in the 6th century BCE. The Persians and the Medes were, quote, nicer to the Israelites than the Babylonians were, and like the Greeks would be later to them. After the Greek Empire fell in the 2nd century BCE, which we spoke upon in the presentation, called Is Rome Part of Daniel chapter 7 on the platform for those interested. After the Greek Empire fell in the 2nd century BCE, we see the Romans coming to power. The vision of Daniel, the prophet, in Daniel 7 verse 6 is Greece, and in Daniel 7 verse 7 is Rome. The 4th kingdom is Rome. The Edomites, from the time of the Babylonians as a ruling people with Babylon, were trying to get into the land of Israel, and Ezekiel 35 speaks of this. So when we speak upon history, quote, Black history, starring the Israelites, brothers and sisters, be it on the Sabbath or any other time, we can see how the scriptures intertwines in history. Some people, and I mean no disrespect intended, nor to get sidetracked, Israelites only cite the Bible. And then there are Israelites who state that a brother on a platform, hey, he's going all over the earth. Does this guy even believe in the scriptures? Does he even cite the Bible? Brothers and sisters, you can sit there and cite both and still get your point across. So these are things, brothers and sisters, that we care to bring out for reference purposes. The Edomite Herod married into the Maccabean line. Herod was supported by the Romans. Pompey of Rome in 63 BCE made Jerusalem a Roman province. The Roman historian Tacitus spoke upon Pompey being in Jerusalem. Shalmaneser III spoke about Ahab, king of Israel. The Assyrian king spoke about Hezekiah, king of Judah. The Assyrian king being Sennacherib. So you had Sennacherib talking about Hezekiah of Judah. Sennacherib being an Assyrian king. You had brothers and sisters, Tacitus of Rome speaking about the Romans going where the Israelites were at. And by the way, Tacitus of Rome was a hater of Israel, did not like the Israelites. So you might want to cite, if you care to, sources that don't make you even look the best to cite your citations. See, it's not, and I'm not a boxer, but correct me if I'm wrong. The guy, Mayweather, maybe I stand to be corrected. He always picked his fights. He won't fight him, he's going to fight him. So when he says, I never lost a fight, you pick your battles. You pick your opponents. So that's probably why maybe you never lost. But brothers and sisters, when we dealing with Israel, and then us as Israelites bringing this kind of information to the broader of our people, quote unquote, African Americans, West Indians, and so forth, we have to maybe get outside of the context of just citing the Bible and going into other sources. And so there's nothing wrong with that. So these are things we care to bring out for reference purposes. Thank you for that, family. Israel scattered from the land. Stephen Jacobs, in his book, Hebrew Heritage of Black Africa, which we cited earlier, stated the following. Louis J. Maury, a noted French historian, thinks that the Falasha Jews of Ethiopia derived from the Israelite tribe of Levi. It is said that the word Falasha means exiles, implying that they come from the Holy Land. Some say that they come from the exiles, probably after the destruction of the northern tribes of Israel, but more probably from Judah after the destruction of Jerusalem by the Romans. The same author states the following, that an Africanus, a famous 16th century geographer and historian, cited this. He records in his book, which in translation is entitled A Geographical History of Africa, that there inhabitants, or there exists, that is to say would inhabit, a most populous nation of Jewish stock. You got to cite what the person was saying directly. We know Jewish would be Israelite. Located west of the Nile and below the Sahara in a region between Abyssinia and the Congo. So I wanted to show brothers and sisters a map of the area we're talking about. Below the Sahara would be in northern Africa, or northern of this map here. And west of the Nile goes into Egypt. I've been on the Nile when I was in Egypt, brothers and sisters. All right. It's a very calm water. But I don't believe that when they say they put a gate and barricaded the crocodiles and the alligators, no, get me back to land, but that's neither here nor there. But brothers and sisters, getting back into this right here, when you're looking at it, it says south of the Sahara. So from Ethiopia to the Congo, as we pointed out here, citing this here, below the Sahara in a region between Abyssinia and the Congo. Abyssinia, brothers and sisters, is another word for Ethiopia. So we're talking about, looking at it here with the map, if we show with a pen, the area here. According to Stephen Jacobs, he's saying that this area we just circled is in part where the tribes of Israel scattered. Now, if Israelites since the time of Isaiah, brothers and sisters, was going into Egypt, what will stop them from going to other places in the same continent? Not to be self-centered, a brother again moved west of New York into New Jersey in the place that I was already familiar with. People are going to go where they're familiar with. So if the Israelites did not go by their own volition to Greece and England and Germany, but went to places in African countries, went to places in countries of the so-called Middle East, and we see a people on the left-hand side, whether you say the so-called Falashas of Israel or not, that are part of those people who call themselves Beit HaYisrael, who's one of their spokesmen said that we thought all the Jews in the world were black. It's not too hard to figure out what we're talking about, brothers and sisters. In this portion right here, we spoke about the so-called Falashas, who call themselves Beit HaYisrael. Then we spoke about the area who live in northern Ethiopia, by the way. And we spoke about the area citing the guy who wrote the book, Hebrew Heritage of Black Africa, which was rewritten by Moses Farah. May Moses Farah be blessed with many more years. So these are things, brothers and sisters, that we care to bring out for reference purposes. Any questions or comments, please feel free to type it into the chat. What I'm going to do, brothers and sisters, is go into the chat that I didn't see here. All right, somebody said this. Nah, Mayweather beat the most champions ever over 5 weight classes. That was a poor example. All right, sorry about that. See, I'm not the best at the boxing history. What I was attempting to convey, sorry about that, is this. When you pick your own fights, thank you for that, my family, for typing that in. I personally, not to get sidetracked, when our friend Tyson bit Holyfield's ear, I personally stopped dealing with watching boxing. Not to talk about sports at the time. When John Starks dunked on Jordan and the Knicks still lost, I winded up stopped watching basketball. I don't know who's playing in the Super Bowl this weekend. I'm a dinosaur in that particular case. So just looking at it like that. But I don't mind a correction. Poor example. That was a poor example. Thank you for correcting me upon that. But what I was attempting to convey is going outside of your stance to prove your point. And that was the point that a brother was trying to make a couple of minutes ago with that. Thank you for that, family. All right. So thank you for that. So let us continue, brothers and sisters. We're going to pull this up, if we will, from the current slide. And we're going to continue in this manner. Thank you for that, family. History shows us that we're the children of Israel or Israel. The point in this was to show black history from the Israelite perspective. If we go scripturally of the Bible, we wind up being Israel. If we go secular, we come up being Israel. Daniel chapter 9, verse 11 says that the curses mentioned in the law of Moses, which we understand today as Deuteronomy chapter 28, it says, have been poured on us. Who can lay claim to be the ancient nation of Israel but those whom the prophecy fit? Who fits the prophecy we talking about? The blacks do. We are offering ourselves to our enemies, and no one is buying us, accepting us. We are brought to this land here in ships. Deuteronomy 28, verse 68, with a yoke of iron on our necks, hungry, thirsty, naked. Deuteronomy 28, verse 48, by a people whose language we did not know. Deuteronomy 28, verse 49, given new names became new names. Bywords, Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 37, brought to a new place, Deuteronomy 28, verse 32 and verse 37, given a new belief systems of other people, Deuteronomy 28, verse 64, in these people's lands, we do not find rest for the sole of our feet, Deuteronomy 28, verse 65, in these lands, our wives were ravished or raped, Deuteronomy 28, verse 32, and we are left few in number, Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 62, and the males and females hate each other and their children, Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 54 to verse 57. I don't mean to get sidetracked. Brothers and sisters, people have, and I'm not going to sound mean, may he rest in peace, been speaking upon the guy Kevin Samuels. Brothers and sisters, I watched a video of that guy who was viewed as a relationship expert. First, giving advice is beautiful. But you don't, my brother, may you rest in peace. Speaking of Kevin Samuels, speak about people's health while drinking those energy drinks. Highly unhealthy, which makes your heart go ridiculously crazy. Again, nobody's perfect. I take personally a thing called bitter melon as opposed to metformin by the hospital because the sugar that I have from eating so much junk food is high. So a brother is not online as a doctor, but rather as a person just looking at certain things. The black men who cite Kevin Samuels saying, why do sisters have children? And no man is the fault of us as men who make children with these women. And like Deuteronomy 28 says, his eyes shall be evil toward her and he abandons her. Like Isaiah chapter 1 says, the daughter of Zion, the said sisters, the so-called black woman, is left as a booth in a garden of cucumbers. The cucumbers go in the booth. What has happened is that people, the black women, are out of place because the brothers are out of place. The black children are out of place because we as men and women are out of place. It's only a foolish generation that looks at the children and say, I can't believe what you're doing, as opposed to trying to either one, depending on the situation, putting a foot in the child's behind or dropping that knowledge into the child's ear to make the child change. These are things, brothers and sisters, that we care to bring for reference purposes. Deuteronomy 28 has been cited by us to the black people in America and beyond for quite some time. Deuteronomy 30 says the antidote to the problems of our people. You don't talk about the problems without offering a solution. Return to the Most High, love your neighbor as yourself. Brothers and sisters, looking upon it in that particular case. So, thus ends part 1 of our presentation. Brothers and sisters, with the timing allotted, this is going to be part 2 starting tomorrow night. Subscribe to the channel, comment, like, and share for those who are interested. Thank you for that, family. We're going to close out now. I'm going to end it off with some music, if you will, brothers and sisters, and thank you for joining on.